Bloomington, Indiana, a college town filled with promise, friendships, and the quiet rhythm of student life. On June 3, 2011, that rhythm was shattered when a young woman stepped into the early morning darkness and never came home. Bloomington in early summer carries a softness that settles over the red brick buildings and tree-lined streets surrounding Indiana University. With many students away between semesters, the pace slows, and the city takes on a gentler tone. Cafes are quieter, sidewalks feel spacious, conversations drift out from open apartment windows into warm night air. It is a season marked by calm, familiarity, and a sense of safety. In 2011, that quiet wrapped itself around tens of thousands of students who called Bloomington their home away from home. Among them was Lauren Spierer, a 20-year-old Indiana University student originally from Scarsdale, New York. Petite, energetic, and unmistakably warm, Lauren had woven herself into the fabric of the campus community. She was known for her kindness, her enthusiasm, and the easy way she formed friendships. Her laughter was familiar in hallways, her presence a bright spot in the lives of those around her. Lauren stood just under 5 feet tall, but her personality filled every space she entered. Friends described her as vibrant and genuine, someone who embraced people quickly and deeply. She loved music. She loved evenings spent talking with friends. She loved the independence and excitement of college life. Bloomington wasn't just where she went to school, it was where she built a life that felt entirely her own. During the summer months, Lauren had settled into a comfortable rhythm. She attended classes, spent time with close friends, and enjoyed the relaxed atmosphere of a campus with fewer students. Her apartment at Smallwood Plaza sat at the center of her world, surrounded by restaurants, other student housing, and the homes of friends she saw often. This part of Bloomington was familiar territory, a place where students walked freely between apartments, gathering in small groups, and moving easily through the warm nights. Lauren's days were shaped by connection, with her roommate, with her circle of friends, and with her family back home in New York. She maintained a close relationship with her parents, Robert and Charlene, who encouraged her independence but remained deeply involved in her life. Their conversations were frequent, comfortable, and filled with the details of everyday college living. Nothing about the start of June suggested anything unusual. Those who saw Lauren on June 2 later recalled her as upbeat, engaged, and simply living her usual routine. The streets she walked that night were ones she knew well, just a short distance that she and countless students navigated regularly. But in the early hours of June 3, everything changed. Lauren moved between apartments, walked familiar sidewalks, and appeared on several surveillance cameras that now formed the backbone of the timeline documenting her final confirmed movements. The footage shows a young woman moving through the Bloomington night, barefoot, without her phone, keys, or purse, a detail investigators would later confirm and examine closely. Each captured moment narrowed the window of her last known whereabouts. By approximately 4:30 a.m., Lauren was seen near the intersection of 11th Street and College Avenue. It was a quiet stretch of roadway, bordered by student housing and lit by streetlights that flickered through the early morning stillness. This would become the final confirmed sighting of her. After that, the trail of her movements stops. No additional surveillance footage places her anywhere else. No verified eyewitness accounts followed. The trail ends abruptly, leaving a silence that has persisted for years. In the hours that followed, concern turned into fear, and fear into the realization that something was profoundly wrong. A young woman known for her reliability and close communication had vanished without explanation. Lauren Spierer walked into the early morning darkness of Bloomington and never was seen again. Lauren Spierer grew up in Scarsdale, New York, a suburban community known for its strong schools, tree-lined streets, and close-knit neighborhoods. Born on January 12, 1991, she was the younger of two daughters in a family that valued warmth, communication, and togetherness. From childhood through her teenage years, Lauren was known for her bright energy, her kindness, and the ease with which she formed friendships. People were naturally drawn to her sincerity, her humor, and her unmistakable warmth. Her parents, Robert and Charlene Spierer, nurtured a loving home where both daughters were encouraged to explore their interests and build confidence in their abilities. Lauren thrived in that environment. She loved spending time with her family, participating in school activities, and staying close to childhood friends who would remain important in her life long after she left New York for college. Lauren also lived with a medical condition, long QT syndrome, a heart rhythm disorder that required ongoing awareness and management. Her family supported her through medical appointments, treatment, and education about the condition. Despite this challenge, Lauren led an active and engaged life. She approached her health with responsibility and did not allow it to define who she was. Those who knew her described her as resilient, positive, and determined. As she approached the end of high school, Lauren began exploring colleges that offered both a strong academic environment and a vibrant social community. She visited Indiana University and immediately connected with the atmosphere. The limestone buildings, the lively campus energy, and the welcoming environment for students from across the country. It felt like a place where she could grow, find independence, and build a life shaped by her own choices. When she chose IU, her parents supported her wholeheartedly, trusting in her maturity and self-awareness. Lauren embraced the transition, diving into college life with the same enthusiasm she brought to everything else. She forged new friendships quickly, becoming part of a social network that extended through classes, residence halls, student housing, and shared activities. Her friends at Indiana University recalled her as someone who made people feel appreciated and included. She had a way of listening closely, laughing easily, and creating a sense of closeness with those around her. Many described her as the friend who checked in, who remembered details, who cared deeply about others' happiness. Social connections mattered to her, and she invested them fully. Lauren settled into Bloomington with comfort and confidence. She lived at Smallwood Plaza, an apartment complex popular among U students and located just blocks from campus. Nearby were the apartments of close friends, restaurants frequented by students, and the familiar sidewalks that connected the community. Lauren moved easily within this environment, building routines that blended academics, friendships, and the independence of young adulthood. She loved being part of the IU community. She attended classes, participated in campus activities, and built lasting bonds with people who became central to her life. She balanced her social world with her academic responsibilities, staying in close contact with her family back home. Her parents later spoke about how often they heard from her. Text messages, calls, updates about classes, and everyday conversations that reinforced the closeness they maintained despite the distance. Lauren's personality shaped her experience in Bloomington. She was described as affectionate and thoughtful, someone who cared deeply for her friends. She had a playful spirit and an ability to make even simple moments feel warm and memorable. Those who met her rarely forgot her. Friends from New York visited her in Bloomington, and many of her IU friends came to know her family well. The connections she built were genuine and enduring. By the summer of 2011, Lauren had fully settled into her life at Indiana University. She was taking summer courses, spending time with friends, and enjoying the quieter pace of campus during the warm months. The routines she had formed were familiar and comforting. She walked the same streets, visited the same apartments, and moved within a community where faces were friendly and familiar. Nothing in her days leading up to June suggested anything out of the ordinary. She appeared happy, connected, and fully immersed in the life she was building, a life filled with friendships, family ties,
academic goals, and the boundless potential of a young woman forging her path. Her story, up to that point, was one of promise and connection. A young woman living independently, but always anchored to the people who loved her. A student finding her place in a college town. A daughter whose family cherished her deeply. A friend whose presence left an unmistakable impact. It was within this world, a world she embraced wholeheartedly, that the events of the night of June 2nd and the early morning of June 3rd unfolded.
The final hours of June 2 through June 3, 2011 trace a path through a familiar territory, a small cluster of streets and apartment buildings near Indiana University. The movements that took place in this narrow window form the last confirmed record of Lauren Spierer's known whereabouts. Each detail that follows is based solely on publicly documented facts, verified surveillance footage, and official statements from law enforcement. On the night of June 2, Lauren began her evening at Smallwood Plaza, the apartment building where she lived. This building stood at the center of her daily life, surrounded by friends' apartments, local businesses, and the routes she walked regularly. Sometime that evening, she left her unit to spend time with friends in nearby apartment complexes. These short walks between buildings were routine, involving only a few minutes of travel along sidewalks and well-lit streets. From Smallwood, Lauren went to the apartment of a friend located just a short distance away. This visit marked the beginning of a sequence of movements, later confirmed through witness statements and surveillance footage. Throughout the night, Lauren moved between a small number of apartments in the area, each time within a space measured not in miles, but in blocks. Several surveillance cameras captured portions of these movements. One of the early videos released to the public showed Lauren walking with friends through the hallway of a nearby apartment building. Later footage documented her leaving another residence and stepping out into the Bloomington night. During portions of the early morning, Lauren was seen barefoot, and she did not have her phone, keys, or purse with her. These details were confirmed by investigators and became important points in the factual record, not because they indicated any conclusion, but because they offered insight into her physical state and the belongings she did or did not carry as she moved from one apartment to another. As the night progressed, Lauren continued walking through the surrounding neighborhood. Witness accounts and surveillance footage placed her along several streets that summer night. Streets she knew well. Streets she had walked many times before. Nothing in these movements, as documented, appeared unusual for a college student spending time with friends in a familiar environment. By approximately 3:30 a.m., Lauren had left one apartment and traveled with a friend toward another nearby residence. The route they took and her presence there were later verified by law enforcement. At each stop, investigators worked to confirm who she was with, what time she arrived or left, and what cameras or witnesses could corroborate. Shortly before dawn, Lauren began walking south along College Avenue, heading toward the intersection with 11th Street. This stretch of roadway, bordered by apartment buildings and illuminated by streetlights, became the critical point in the timeline. At approximately 4:30 a.m., surveillance footage captured Lauren walking alone near 11th and College. This recording is the final confirmed sighting of her. The footage shows Lauren moving steadily down the street. No additional cameras captured her after this moment. No verified witness accounts placed her at any location beyond that intersection. In the hours that followed, there were no confirmed phone calls, no bank activity, no digital footprints, and no physical evidence found along the nearby paths that could extend the timeline. From that final recorded image onward, the factual record goes still. The distance Lauren covered in those last documented moments was small, only a few blocks from her starting point earlier in the night. Yet within that short span, the trail ended completely, without any confirmed indication of what occurred next. The night of June 2 through June 3, 2011, stands as a tightly defined sequence of verified movements. Lauren's path through Bloomington is captured in pieces, in footage, in statements, and in the familiar geography of a college neighborhood. Every confirmed detail leads to the same final point, and beyond that point, the record simply stops. In the silence that followed, a young woman who had been seen walking through a quiet Bloomington neighborhood just minutes before dawn
seemed to vanish without a trace.
When the sun rose over Bloomington on June 3, 2011, the city awakened to an ordinary summer morning. But for the small circle of friends who expected to see or hear from Lauren Spierer, something felt immediately wrong. Lauren had not returned to her apartment at Smallwood Plaza, and she had not contacted anyone. For someone known to stay closely connected with her family and friends, this silence was deeply out of character. Throughout the morning, attempts were made to reach her. Phone calls went unanswered. Messages received no reply. Friends checked places she frequented and spoke to people who might have seen her earlier in the night, but no one had any new information. Hours began to pass, and with them came a growing sense of unease. By early afternoon, Lauren was officially reported missing to the Bloomington Police Department. The report was filed by a close friend who had grown increasingly concerned when it became clear that Lauren had not returned to her apartment and had not been heard from since the early morning hours. When officers received the call, they treated the situation with urgency from the very beginning. Police began gathering information immediately. They spoke with friends who had seen Lauren the night before and early that morning, collecting details about her movements, the route she had taken, and the belongings she had left behind. Her phone, purse, and keys, investigators confirmed, were still inside her apartment at Smallwood Plaza. These items had not been used since the night before. As this information came together, the gravity of the situation became unmistakable. While officers worked to establish the timeline, one more call was made to Lauren's parents, Robert and Charlene Spierer, in Scarsdale, New York. They were informed that Lauren had not returned to her apartment, had not been in contact with anyone, and had effectively disappeared. The news struck with devastating force. They immediately made plans to travel to Bloomington, beginning a journey that would bring them to the center of the unfolding search for their daughter. Back in Bloomington, law enforcement initiated the earliest stages of the investigation. Officers canvassed the area around 11th Street and College Avenue, where Lauren had last been seen in surveillance footage around 4:30 a.m. They knocked on doors, spoke with residents, and asked potential witnesses if they had seen anything unusual earlier in the night. Every angle was considered. Every detail was important. Police obtained security footage from buildings near the area, reviewing each recording for clues about Lauren's movements. They retraced the walkway she followed between the apartment she had visited and the point of her last confirmed sighting. Officers searched alleyways, sidewalks, grassy patches, and wooded areas. They examined dumpsters, checked parking lots, and looked into any space where someone might have gone unseen in the darkness of early morning. But no physical evidence was found. No clothing, no belongings, no sign of a struggle. No confirmed sightings beyond the final surveillance clip. The timeline ended, and the absence of information deepened the urgency of the search. That afternoon, Lauren's parents arrived in Bloomington. Within hours of stepping into the city, they were meeting with detectives, learning the known details, and joining the expanding efforts to locate their daughter. For them, hope and fear existed side by side. Hope that Lauren might be found quickly. Fear that the silence of the morning had already lasted too long. News of Lauren's disappearance spread rapidly across the Indiana University campus and throughout the Bloomington community. Students printed flyers, shared information online, and gathered to assist in the search. Social media posts circulated widely, urging anyone with information to come forward. As more people became aware of the situation, the collective concern grew into a citywide effort mobilized by fear, hope, and determination. United by the urgent need to find a missing young woman whose trail had suddenly gone cold.
The disappearance of Lauren Spierer set into motion one of the most extensive investigative efforts Bloomington had ever seen. From the moment the missing person report was filed, law enforcement treated the case with urgency, knowing that the first hours after someone vanishes can be critical. What followed was a coordinated, exhaustive search spanning days, weeks, and ultimately years, all guided by a single goal: to uncover what happened in the early morning hours of June 3, 2011. The Bloomington Police Department began by establishing the factual timeline of Lauren's final confirmed movement. Investigators spoke with everyone who had seen or interacted with her the night before. They collected direct statements, documented exact times where possible, and cross-referenced each detail with physical evidence. Surveillance footage from apartment buildings and businesses was gathered and reviewed frame by frame. This work confirmed Lauren's presence on several cameras, including the final sighting near 11th Street and College Avenue. After reviewing available footage, detectives turned their attention to the areas surrounding that last confirmed location. Officers searched sidewalks, alleyways, parking lots, wooded patches, and every accessible area within a large radius. They checked dumpsters and construction sites, examined hidden spaces, and walked the likely routes Lauren would have taken. Specialized K-9 units were brought in to assist. Despite the thoroughness of these efforts, no trace of Lauren was found. As word of her disappearance spread, Bloomington's community responded with overwhelming support. Volunteers poured into search headquarters, ready to cover any ground necessary. Students, faculty, local residents, and people from surrounding towns formed search teams that fanned across the city. They walked wooded trails, open fields, parks, and rural roads. Flyers bearing Lauren's photo appeared on storefronts, bulletin boards, and doorways across the region. Lauren's parents, Robert and Charlene, stood at the center of these efforts. They arrived in Bloomington determined to do anything within their power. They worked closely with police, met with volunteers, and took part in public appeals. Their days became a constant cycle of meetings, updates, and outreach, fueled by the hope that someone, somewhere, might come forward with information. Within days, additional agencies joined the investigation. The Indiana State Police, FBI, and other specialized units offered support, expanding the search's reach and adding new analytical tools. Their involvement brought additional expertise in forensic valuation, digital analysis, interview protocols, and large-scale search operations. Investigators pursued every lead that surfaced. Tips arrived by phone, email, and in person, coming not only from Bloomington residents, but from people across the country who believed they had seen something or knew something that might help. Detectives cataloged each tip, assessed its credibility, and followed up wherever necessary. Leads were checked, interviews were conducted, and potential sightings were evaluated, but none produced verified evidence of Lauren's whereabouts. The search efforts expanded beyond the city center. Rural parts of Monroe County were examined, as were remote areas of neighboring counties when tips pointed outward. Search teams used specialized equipment to scan forests, ravines, and bodies of water. Creeks, lakes, and reservoirs were explored by dive teams, and shoreline sweeps were performed repeatedly as new information arrived. Despite these efforts, none of the searches produced conclusive findings. Investigators also examined potential evidence through digital and forensic analysis. They reviewed security footage from the night Lauren disappeared, not just from the final stretch of College Avenue, but from other locations where she had been earlier that evening. They analyzed phone records, digital data, and any available digital trail that might help to reconstruct her steps. Although the information confirmed earlier parts of the timeline, it did not extend beyond the last verified sighting. Throughout the investigation, the police department made a point to communicate regularly with the public. Updates detailed the number of officers involved, the areas that had been searched, and the volume of tips being processed. These updates emphasized the same truth each time. Despite extensive efforts, no definitive evidence had surfaced that explained what happened after 4:30 a.m. Through it all, Lauren's parents continued to speak, to search, and to hope. Their commitment became one of the defining forces of the investigation. They remained present in Bloomington for long periods, working with investigators, thanking volunteers, and urging anyone with information to come forward. Their dedication helped sustain public awareness long after initial searches began to wind down. The investigation stretched into months of exhaustive work. Thousands of hours were spent searching, interviewing, reviewing, and rechecking areas in hopes of uncovering even the smallest clue. Every step of that process reinforced a single, unchanging fact. After the last confirmed sighting, no verified evidence revealed where Lauren went or what happened next. This void, the absence of anything beyond that final image on surveillance, became the central challenge. Despite the immense scale of the search, despite the involvement of multiple agencies, and despite widespread community support, no discovery brought Lauren's family closer to the answer they desperately sought.
The investigation remained open. The search continued, and the hope for clarity persisted, driven by determination, compassion, and the belief that the truth was still out there, waiting to be found.
As the weeks following Lauren Spierer's disappearance turned into months, the investigation expanded into a wide field of possibilities. Without confirmed evidence after the final sighting at 11th Street and College Avenue, investigators were forced to consider every reasonable scenario. The effort was guided by caution, thoroughness, and a commitment to avoiding assumptions. Only publicly documented information shaped the direction of the search. One possibility examined was abduction. Lauren had been walking alone in the early morning hours at a time when the streets were quiet and foot traffic was minimal. The idea that she may have encountered an unknown individual was considered because it could not be ruled out. Law enforcement evaluated tips involving suspicious vehicles, unusual activity, or unknown persons reported in the area. While each of these leads was investigated, none produced evidence confirming an abduction took place. Another avenue of consideration involved the possibility of accidental injury. Given Lauren's medical history, including long QT syndrome, a medical emergency was treated as a viable scenario. Search teams thoroughly reviewed creeks, drainage areas, wooded sections, and secluded spaces where someone experiencing distress might have collapsed or become disoriented. Despite methodical searches, no physical evidence was found that supported this possibility. A third category involved unknown circumstances involving individuals Lauren encountered that night. Investigators conducted numerous interviews, reviewed statements, and examined the timeline to understand every interaction leading up to her disappearance. They re-interviewed individuals as needed, checked for inconsistencies, and cross-referenced accounts with surveillance footage. While these efforts helped confirm portions of the timeline, they did not produce definitive answers about what happened after Lauren's final documented steps. In the months that followed, several major leads drew significant attention. Many involved locations that appeared promising based on community tips or information brought to the attention of law enforcement. For each, investigators approached the search with seriousness and precision. One of the largest undertakings involved landfill searches. When certain tips suggested the possibility that evidence might have been transported through the local waste system, authorities conducted extensive, labor-intensive searches of landfill areas. These operations involve specialized personnel, heavy equipment, grid-based procedures, and careful documentation. Despite the scale of the work, no items linked to Lauren were discovered. Searches of waterways were equally extensive. Dive teams examined lakes, reservoirs, and rivers near Bloomington. Sonar equipment was used to scan underwater terrain. Shorelines were swept multiple times. These searches were repeated when new information surfaced, ensuring that no area was overlooked. Again, no confirmed evidence was recovered. Reported sightings of Lauren emerged in several states over the months and years that followed. As with many high-profile missing person cases, individuals from across the country believed that they had seen someone resembling her. Law enforcement followed up on these reports, checking locations, reviewing video footage when available, and speaking with witnesses. None of the sightings were validated as being Lauren. Another category of leads involved properties or locations outside the city center. Remote fields, vacant buildings, wooded areas, and rural sites. Cadaver dogs and specialized search teams were deployed to many of these places. Some tips required extensive planning and coordination to evaluate. While these searches were often thorough and time-consuming, none resulted in findings that advanced the investigation. Throughout the process, police revisited earlier evidence when appropriate. Surveillance footage from the night of June 2nd and morning of June 3rd was reanalyzed with updated tools and fresh perspectives. Phone records and digital data were reviewed repeatedly. Statements were re-examined to ensure that no detail had been overlooked. The absence of new evidence did not diminish the effort. Instead, it underscored the complexity of the case. Public discussion often focused on the unanswered questions at the center of Lauren's disappearance. With no confirmed explanation, theories continued to circulate in the media, in community conversations, and online. Yet law enforcement and Lauren's family remained clear and consistent. None of the theories had been proven true, and none could be accepted without verified evidence. The case remained open and active. Tips continued to arrive. Investigators remained available to review new information. The Spierer family maintained contact with authorities and continued encouraging the public to share anything that could help. Their message never changed. Any detail, no matter how small, could be important. What made the case so difficult was not a lack of effort, but the absence of a confirmed lead after the final moment Lauren appeared on surveillance. A radius of only a few blocks separated where her night began and where the known timeline ended. Within that small space, every search had been exhaustive, every credible lead checked, and every scenario considered. Even so, the search never stopped. The commitment from law enforcement, volunteers, and Lauren's family persisted long after the initial weeks of the investigation. The unanswered questions and the hope for resolution continued to drive the ongoing efforts. The passage of time did not diminish the determination to find out what happened. The search remained active, the case remained open, and the community continued to hold on to the belief that the truth could still be found.
In the years since her disappearance, Lauren Spierer's absence has echoed far beyond the quiet Bloomington streets where she was last seen. What began as an urgent search in the early hours of June 3, 2011, became a long, painful journey for her family, a defining moment for the Indiana University community, and a story that drew national attention, not because of any dramatic revelation, but because of the silence that followed her final confirmed steps. For Robert and Charlene Spierer, life shifted instantly from the routines of everyday parenthood to the unimaginable reality of searching for a missing child. When they arrived in Bloomington, they entered a world of press conferences, investigative meetings, volunteer searches, and constant public visibility. Their days were shaped by updates from law enforcement, outreach to the community, and the steady ache of uncertainty. They spoke publicly with clarity and composure, emphasizing facts, avoiding speculation, and urging anyone with information to come forward. In interviews and written statements, Lauren's parents shared memories of who she was, a joyful, loving daughter with a bright personality and deep connections to family and friends. They expressed their gratitude for the volunteers who searched tirelessly, the investigators who continued their work, and the countless people across the country who offered support. Their reflections remained focused on Lauren's life rather than the unknowns surrounding her disappearance. They spoke about her smile, her humor, her kindness, and the light she brought into the lives of others. The Bloomington community was deeply affected as well. Indiana University students and residents who participated in the searches often described the experience as transformative, changing how they thought about safety, community responsibility, and the importance of looking out for one another. Flyers with Lauren's photo stayed posted around campus. Her name remained present in conversations, student groups, and campus safety initiatives. The case became part of the town's collective memory, a reminder of how quickly normalcy can fracture. As the investigation continued through the years, law enforcement remained committed. The Bloomington Police Department kept the case open, following new leads as they emerged and revisiting earlier evidence with fresh eyes. The department consistently affirmed that they had not forgotten Lauren and urged the public to share any information, even if it seems small or insignificant. The FBI and Indiana State Police remained available to support the case as needed, underscoring its seriousness and the determination to find answers. Public awareness persisted as well.
Media coverage resurfaced on significant dates, anniversaries of Lauren's disappearance, birthdays, and times when new developments in missing person advocacy brought attention to unresolved cases. Articles, documentaries, and public appeals kept Lauren's story alive far beyond Bloomington or Indiana. Across the country, many people who never knew her came to recognize her name, her face, and the circumstances of the night she vanished. Throughout everything, Lauren's life remained profoundly important to those who knew her. Friends from Indiana University and Scarsdale remembered her as a bright, loving presence who created connections easily. They honored her by sharing stories about her kindness, her laughter, and the joy she brought to everyday moments. For them, the disappearance did not erase the person they had known, it made their memories even more precious. Robert and Charlene Spierer continued their efforts year after year. They upheld their commitment to finding answers, speaking publicly about their daughter, and maintaining the message that information, no matter the delay, could still bring clarity. Their strength, compassion, and persistence became a defining part of Lauren's story, reflecting a family's enduring love and refusal to give up hope. More than a decade later, Lauren Spierer has not been found. No verified evidence has surfaced that explains what happened after she was last seen. The case remains active, and investigators continue to review new tips as they arise. The absence of answers has made Lauren's disappearance one of the most haunting unsolved cases in recent memory. Not because of rumors or speculation, but because the factual record ends so abruptly, leaving only questions behind. And yet, in the face of that uncertainty, one truth has remained constant. Lauren's life continues to matter deeply to those who loved her. Her family's hope endures. The community's memory of her endures. The search for answers endures. This story remains a somber reminder of the fragility of everyday moments and of the profound impact one person can have on the lives of so many others. Lauren Spierer is still missing. Her family is still searching, and the hope for truth remains alive.